Well, America's 39th president, Jimmy Carter, passed away yesterday at the age of 100. And while the nation remembers his life this morning, he had an even more direct impact on some people right here in North Texas. Trevor Sahaki is live with us in studio this morning. Trevor, specifically talk to us about Habitat for Humanity. I mean, a lot of folks are familiar with that organization, especially with local ties here in North Texas. But how did that play a role in his legacy?
Yeah, so he became a huge volunteer with Habitat for Humanity, as you said. It began a few years after President Jimmy Carter left the White House. He and Mrs. Carter began volunteering with Habitat for Humanity, and not just with money, but with time, getting their hands dirty.
He was certainly a humanitarian. He put politics aside once he left the White House and just did good for the common man.
The Carters volunteered with the nonprofit since 1984, raising awareness about the need for affordable housing. Over the decades, the two built and renovated more than 4,000 homes, including some here in North Texas in 2014. Just days after his 90th birthday, he wasn't taking pictures nor signing autographs. He was swinging a hammer. Homeowner Jacqueline Wills says her home on the east side of Fort Worth was named the Carter House since he himself worked on it.
It was such an honor to have him and his wife here working with us. I will never forget that, and I'll be totally indebted to him for the rest of our life.
Now, President Biden declared January 9th to be a national day of mourning. That's when Carter's state funeral will happen. The Carter Center says public memorial services will also be held in Atlanta before he's laid to rest near his home next to his wife and former First Lady Rosalynn Carter, who died last November. Madison.
Now, Trevor, let's talk a little bit more about his campaign, because while he only served in the White House one term, I mean, he had a pretty lasting legacy in Texas.
Yes, a big lasting legacy in Texas because he's known as the last presidential candidate to win in Texas as a Democrat. Apparently, he held a rally for about 10,000 people in Fort Worth right before Election Day that some politicians credit as being the convincing factor to help him win the state.
Wow. Yeah, certainly a lot of really important details to his life and legacy, and not just during the time that he served in the White House.
Yeah.
Trevor, thank you for highlighting that for us. By the way, as you can imagine, there have been leaders from all across the country expressing admiration for Carter. Former President George W. Bush releasing a statement that says, in part, President Carter dignified the office, and his efforts to leave behind a better world did not end with the presidency. Governor Greg Abbott also writing in a statement, quote, having led a life marked by selfless service to the American people, President Carter leaves behind a great legacy as a husband, father, naval officer, governor, Nobel Prize winner, and he will be greatly missed by many. Well, this morning, many are sending thoughts, prayers, and condolences to the Carter family. Dozens of lawmakers have been sharing the impact that Jimmy Carter had on the nation. And this morning, we want to get right to CBS News reporter Jared Hill in New York, because, Jared, we've been issued statements from, as I just read, President Bush, but President Biden and President-elect Donald Trump are also reacting this morning.
Yeah, that's right, Madison. So we saw President-elect Trump commenting here, and this kind of rings true with a lot of the commentary that we were seeing around this. He said that while he doesn't agree with Carter politically or even philosophically, he did acknowledge that Jimmy Carter was someone who had the American people first of mind while he was in office and then afterward. Similar sentiments from President Biden as well as former President Clinton and Obama. All of this, again, really focusing in on his character, because as we know, Jimmy Carter is known not necessarily as much for his work in office, but so much so for the 4 or so decades that he spent after he left the White House after that first term. As you guys were mentioning there, his work with Habitat for Humanity, as well as trying to broker peace deals across the country and across the world also.
Now, we also know that, I mean, his death happened yesterday, so funeral arrangements are in progress. President Biden scheduled a state funeral in Washington for President Carter in January. But what else do we know about end-of-life celebrations to expect?
Yeah, so a lot of the specifics are still being worked out, but what we do know is that state funeral is going to be scheduled for January 9th in Washington, D.C. after public observances in Atlanta. Also likely that he will lie in state in Washington for folks to come and pay their respects there as well before he's buried at his home church, or outside of his home church in Plains, Georgia, a place that he really saw was his home, both, physically while he was alive, but also spiritually as well.
All
Back
right.
to you.
Jared Hill, thank you for that context. Well, we are continuing to remember and share more on Carter's life and legacy, as well as reaction to his passing. You can find our complete coverage at cbsnewstexas.com.